Can I read you something? Sure. Okay, thanks. Adults are not allowed to participate. I need the students. Can I read you something? Yes. Okay, thank you. We're not in the classroom. So with me, you can do almost whatever you want. This is from about a week ago. Climate-related death of coral around world alarms scientists. Have you heard of this thing called climate change? Yeah. Does it make you happy? Yeah, I hope not. Kim Cobb, a marine scientist at the Georgia Institute of Technology, expected the coral to be damaged when she plunged into the deep blue waters off of Kirimati Island, a remote atoll near the center of the Pacific Ocean. Still, she was stunned by what she saw as she descended some 30 feet to the rim of a coral outcropping. The entire reef is covered with a red-brown fuzz, Dr. Cobb said when she returned to the surface after her recent dive. It is otherworldly. It is algae that has grown over dead coral. It was devastating. The damage off Kirimati is part of a mass bleaching of coral reefs around the world, only the third on record and possibly the worst ever. Scientists believe that heat stress from multiple weather events, including the latest severe El Niño, compounded by climate change, has threatened more than a third of Earth's coral reefs. Many may not recover. Coral reefs are the crucial incubators of the ocean's ecosystem, providing food and shelter to a quarter of all marine species. And they support fish stocks that feed more than 1 billion people. Can you draw the link there? If we lose the reefs, maybe food for 1 billion people is not there. Can I read you something else? Yeah? Okay. 7 BC residents have tested positive for the Zika virus, including 2 pregnant women whose fetuses are now being closely monitored at the BC Women's Hospital. Since testing began in BC last November, 635 Zika virus tests have been conducted, but only in the last few days has the most dreaded scenario occurred: positive tests in pregnant women whose fetuses may develop birth defects. Had you heard about the Zika before? Yeah, whew, that's scary. Can you guess where this is? Yeah, it's probably on the border between Syria and Turkey. That could be just such a depressing beginning to a time that's supposed to be fun and interesting, eh? But we got to be honest with ourselves. What's sad about this picture, I can see it here on the screen, but what's sad about this is that if all the ice melts and the seawater rises, this will be happening all over the world, because anyone who lives in a coastal city will have to move. It's very likely that Canada will be asked to take not 25,000 Syrian refugees, but maybe like 25 million. What do we do about that? I would love to count on these people. If they could cooperate, we are definitely saved. And they could do it. Superman could melt things and make walls, and Batman could fight the bad guys that cause Syrian wars, and I don't know what she can do yet, but she looks like badass, right? So that's one option. I haven't met any of them yet, and as far as I can tell, it's just movie characters, so let's move on to maybe who might be next. Do you know who that person is? She's pretty impressive. To carry on after what happened to her, and it's just like remarkable, it's inspirational. I bet one day like angel wings are gonna pop out of her back and she's gonna cruise around saving stuff, but I don't think she's done that yet, and it's also hard because one person I don't think can handle all those things that we just saw. Technology. We're gonna need technology, absolutely, to solve those challenges, but I don't think we're seeing that we have it yet. What about this guy? This guy's pretty cool. He is to me. I'm not a Catholic, but I still find this guy pretty neat. We're going to need to have faith because we're facing we're facing like, will we survive type of questions, right? So we need religion, we need faith. I have this crazy idea that we might just have exactly what we need already if we know how to use it. Are you ready? You're either going to laugh or just not believe this, or you're just going to fall asleep. That. we have this amazing thing that we have built, and Canada especially has it, and it's called our democracy. And it's this ability for us to work through the most challenging problems that we have and do something about it without fighting about it, killing each other, as long as we know how to use it and we actually use it well. And then we have this boring old-looking place that's made out of wood and no one could ever afford to make something so fancy ever again. And it's about who we elect to put in that place that can face the world's toughest challenges. It's our politics and our democracy. Is that a crazy idea? Or can you even imagine this for a sec? What, you got an answer? We're not in the classroom. Help me out. Yeah, let's do it. Great. Love that attitude. Awesome. That was my attitude back when I looked like that. Is anyone here 17? Yep, that was me at 17. So I went to university and I just screwed it. I just did not do very well at university. I never went to school. Instead, I just hosted these things called raves. I don't know if you've ever heard about these things. I would read books, but they were not university books. And I had this smart idea that I could use my time better because I went to my first couple of classes. I sat right up front. I'd never done something like this. And I realized that the teachers were just teaching what was in the textbook. And so I thought I'd be smart, use my time for everything else I wanted to do, which was like nothing about school. And then one day I'll just read the textbook and it's as if I went to the class. Just a quick Taylor tip, don't do that. But that was my thinking. So I barely made it through the first year. The second year I just failed out badly. Not so good for your confidence. Went back, worked, felt really good at that, but my job wouldn't let me progress unless I had a degree, so I went back, and I just totally failed out again. It was even worse. Just got into just drinking and drugs and just a major screw-up. That was me. I kept that, in some people's eyes, going when I returned home, and was lost and down and all this sort of stuff, and then quickly found myself with the young lady I was with pregnant at 22. I obviously wasn't pregnant, but that's a big thing. That's a big thing. And I said, okay, you know what? I want to use this this is a very positive thing. I want to use this as an opportunity to do something about this and make the most of this. And I didn't have a degree to rely on. I might not have really had much to rely on, but I could do two things. I could read and I could watch TV. So I liked reading the news. I didn't need to travel the world to know how lucky I was to be Canadian. I just know that. Do you feel lucky to be Canadian? Yeah? Yeah. Now, as work's starting to progress a bit outside of Canada, I'm starting to realize that just even more and more. And I could watch the TV, and I could see what was on TV, and I could see all sorts of stuff, and I could read interesting magazine articles, and I knew whatever we had was super lucky. I also started to read about this other thing, voter turnout. I'm sorry, I don't even like charts, but do you kind of see how it's going down? Voter turnout is the number of people that show up at the polls, and I just couldn't understand why we started to get to the place where only 6 out of 10 people were showing up at the polls, because for me, I didn't have to grow up fighting in World War I or World War II or all sorts of other things that are just terrible. The least I could do is go to the polls. And also too, maybe more than just a sign of respect, it also was an opportunity for me to get what I wanted out of politics. And I'd read some different books about education because I really never liked school. I never felt like I was good at it, so I was questioning just even the idea of education, what it was supposed to accomplish. And within one of those books, I read about these attempts by people, because this trend of lower voter turnout was happening in different places all over the world. And so I read about this attempt to put kid ballot boxes inside the real poll stations, with the hope being that maybe kids could go and bring their parents. And it was really neat. It was an awesome idea. But I worried that you'd only get those parents that were already going to go. The best place to do it is if we could build something inside of schools, those places that I just did not like. It was so weird that I was even thinking about that, so that every student could have a chance to participate, to practice, and also challenged this belief that almost every young person had, and I think they were right about it, that politicians were not paying attention to young people because young people didn't vote. It was a vicious circle, right? So we started this thing that at the time we called, well, it's still the same name, Student Vote. And the goal was, oh, sorry, I have to show you this. Part of this clue that we were on the right track is anytime I brought up someone voting or political participation with people my age, they looked like that guy. They were like, politics, what? Voting? And what they always said is they're like, well, I just don't know anything about it. And you can't care about something unless you know about it, right? Also, too, like for politics, it's such a maybe tough thing to get into, or voting if you don't know anything about it, because you don't maybe get immediate return, and there's always losers in it. It's a tough thing. But I thought if we could do something like this, we're starting really young and then growing up into high school, where people could practice, we might be able to change this situation. And the thing for me, too, is that we need to do it in an interesting way, and we need to do it in a way that gave you a voice. Let's go to the recent federal election. We grew up to the place where over half of all schools in Canada, 7,500, signed up for the student vote program. What it causes is situations like this. We're in a place like this, or even bigger, there'd be hundreds of students in front of the actual election candidates. And what we started to see happening over the course of years is that if candidates didn't show up to the forum that was going on during the campaign in school, the local newspaper would write about it, and those candidates could actually lose their seat. We started to see this power develop within high school students when you're not even eligible to vote yet. What we've also been able to do is get the leaders of the political parties to respond to questions right from you during the course of the campaign. And we were talking about this in the office yesterday. The people that respond to the student vote questions and videos are the ones that win the election. Those people that have not responded, like we saw in the recent campaign and some provincial ones before that, they never win either being a premier or a prime minister. We had tons of this type of media coverage where throughout the campaign our priority was giving you a voice because you can actually impact it before you do this, what you might just say is like a simulation. 1,100 stories in print or on television were about you doing this in schools across the country. What we think we saw was people your age, under the voting age, literally inspiring care for the election last October. That's Matt Galloway. So if you don't know Matt Galloway, he hosts the most popular radio show in the country with the highest number of listeners. The Matt Galloways of radio and television in CBC across the country went into schools throughout the campaign to speak with you directly about what you cared about, because they thought that you could engage and inspire people older than you to care about the political process and that election specifically. I don't know if you know that old guy, but that old guy is one of the most well-known journalists in the country, and he's also the one that reads the news on CTV. And what he's talking about that night is the fact that over 900,000 students across Canada cast a student vote ballot in the recent election. When we started this thing, I mean, we were just like, in some schools, to get to the place where nearly 1 million students cast a ballot, that is power. That is power in your hands. And the whole point being is that the higher number of students we could get, you could not be ignored anymore by the political system. You could not be ignored by political parties. So I don't know if you can see that too well, but the seat count's different, but can you see the similarities in the popular vote percentage? Can you actually see that? Do you understand the chart? Okay. Nearly identical, right? We think that maybe one or two things, or well, either of these two things, or both, or one other thing is happening. You could just be sheep and you go home and you talk to your parents and you do what they do. You vote how they do. That's not the worst thing in the world. You're talking to your parents about your political values at home, you share them. That's fine. The other thing that we think is happening, because this is what your teachers are telling us and you yourselves are telling us, when you go through something like this, you end up knowing more than your parents, and you actually start to shift public opinion by what you've learned in school. Most people don't attend candidates forums anymore, and you have them right in your school. Some parents will admit that they changed who they were going to vote for because they felt their kid knew more than them, or they're just lying to you to make you feel good about what you learned in school. It's just neat that we've grown from 250,000 to 400 to 500 to almost 600 to 900. In 4 years, when we do the next federal election, I want to be well over 1 million. Again, it's about giving you this mass power that you now have because you can't be ignored in our political process anymore. And I ask that because you could kind of compare it like this. Do you think you share the same values as your grandparents? No? Yeah, I don't know. I remember talking to my dad about climate change. He's like, wow, we really screwed up this world for you guys. Good luck. He's a nice guy, but doesn't help. Not helpful. We've done this other thing now. We're doing it over the next couple of months, and we're just speaking about some of it in the back. We've organized more than 100 or nearly 150 members of parliament to go back into high schools after they were recently elected so they could listen to what you care about to bring back to parliament. This is the type of stuff that we can do between elections to make sure you don't lose that voice. We run something around the budget where we actually get students to give their opinions to the Minister of Finance, or in this case, in addition, last year, one of the special advisors to the Prime Minister about what you want to see in Canada's budget. We're continually trying to find ways that you can have a voice in our political process. So what happened in the recent federal election, and this just came out in a study yesterday, we're nonpartisan, so I'm not concerned about who you vote for. I am concerned that you participate, because if you don't, I think you should just go move somewhere else. Give this lucky space that you have in Canada to someone else who really is prepared to use it. Turnout went up about 10%. And in a study that was released yesterday, and we're expecting more information to come out, it's all because of young people going to the polls for maybe the first time in a whole new generation. You might actually be in the process of taking over Canada's politics. I don't know if you care about that, but that's just exciting. We're seeing a generational change now because you've started to show up. Did that have anything to do with it? I hope so. Yeah, and there's that's a quote from Abacus, actually a friend of ours who runs this research company, that basically says that the power now for our politics is in your hands, which is, amazing. And it's a privilege. So it's kind of crazy, and it's all happening like over the last year and a half. That program around the budget, we got this phone call that I thought was like a joke phone dialing from someone on another floor in the building from the World Bank saying, oh, we had never seen a program like this that gets high school students to care about the budget. Could we fly your teammates to Moscow and Warsaw to present to the European Union about this? I didn't believe it until we actually saw the tickets and the visas, and that started. In Mexico, Kenya, Jordan, Lebanon. I'm actually having a call tomorrow morning with people being piped in from Jordan and Lebanon. We're exploring whether or not we can teach them how to run their own student vote. Imagine in emerging or developing democracies, or ones that are just extremely threatened by all sorts of different things, that people your age start to understand what it's like to actually vote and actually care for your democracy. Imagine somewhere like Afghanistan or Iraq where the threats being faced by people who show up at the polls is being killed. This is cool. This is cool. We can export this. It's so cool for Canada that we might be in a position where we're starting to export like our true democratic values. In summary, the whole thing I feel about this, and I hope you share in it, and I don't know, I just hope you've even found this interesting, is that I feel that if more people participate in politics, we're going to get better politics. Better politics means the public policies that are created for citizens or for all of us, they're not just for little micro groups. Better public policies will make a better Canada. I firmly believe that. And I actually think, and this might be a big giant leap, that a better Canada can cause a better world. People look to us around the world. They look to us for examples. Down in Mexico, just a few months ago, a young woman got elected mayor, and she was open. What's happening down there is it's pretty rough. The cartels have started to take over municipalities, so like towns and stuff, because they can use them to just siphon off money that comes from their federal government. These are not friendly people. So she gets elected on the very first day, knock at her door, and people come in, people with guns, and she says to them, I know why you're here. Go ahead. And they shoot her to death on her first day being mayor. We have so much to show to the world, and I think that we'll be a better country if we're more involved, if we participate, and it's just even out of respect for what we've got. So if there's like a takeaway, appreciate what you have. I hope you use it. And I hope, I thank you for your attention about what we're trying to do for you. Have a great day.